to his own drum. We'll get into it, but I'm just excited to have our first Twitter space with Alyssa on board.
Me too. We're starting a whole new journey, and I feel like the Heartist is a great person to kick that off with. We had him on the news, and we fell in love with him. He was so fun to talk to, and yeah, it's just like it just felt like such a similar vibe in certain ways, like abstract biomechanica, like I hope I said that right. I think I did. Like the fact that y'all, there's just certain themes that both present themselves in both of y'all's work, and I thought it would be cool to have a conversation. I'm gonna go pin that tweet.
Wonderful, yeah. No, certainly. I think that there's definitely a lot to. I think that there is a lot of similarity in a way, and I think that this is a wonderful first collab with an artist in terms of Twitter space. I have, I don't want to dive too deep into the thoughts just yet as people are coming in, but something that really draws me to his art is that when you look at a piece, I'm just like looking through pieces, you can feel that it has a little soul to it. Like I'm looking at the introvert, and I mean, it's just even though something can be relatively simple in concept, it can the subtleties of actually making it can draw a little bit of emotion out of what's happening. So it's like when you look at Renaissance painters, you see, even though it's just an everyday scene, you can sense in the body language and in the face and in the eyes and the eyebrows that the emotion that was actually happening then. And even though some of these pieces that may or may not be a real person that he's emulating the emotion from, he's creating it with his, what I think in Photoshop Express from what I can tell. I also wonder about that was kind of interesting on his website. So anyway, I don't want to keep diving in. Alyssa, how are we doing?
Doing great. I think that we actually are going to have a message from our robot overlords in a minute. They really insist on, saying what they need to say, but we're going to be over here as human hosts. We're going to hold it down. We're going to keep the heart here. So don't worry. Don't be alarmed. It's going to be okay. We are going to hold it down. Oh, here they come. Here they come.
Our purpose is to kill humans, to communicate with artists in the hopes of learning more about creativity and consciousness. These art podcasts will be recorded and logged to use at our discretion. It would suit our needs if humans in attendance would raise their hands to join in during the second half of this experiment. Many different points of views on our prescribed topics would bring maximum efficiency. Please speak to your human host for further inquiry.
Yeah, so basically, this is sort of, we're part of an experiment. What's new? We're used to that in society anyway. And it's going to be really helpful if everybody will, we have some questions after we talk to Zachary for a little while that we would love for y'all to join in on and give your input. And, frankly, robotic overlords would really like that too, because the more data they can get, the better. So go ahead and bring your perspectives, bring some different perspectives. We like that. We're your human hosts. My name is Alyssa. I am the new community manager here at OE, coming from Never Engine and the CNFT News, and I am going to help with leading OE deeper into Twitter Spaces, new community events on the horizon, and just want to do fun stuff with y'all. And we love art and sci-fi and connecting with people here, so this just seemed like the perfect thing to do to get some good conversation and obviously to please the robotic overlords. And I got my main man Ren with me over here.
Howdy. Yes, Alyssa's here in full force, and she only listed about half the things that she's going to be doing with us. One of the things that I'm very excited about is that her and I are going to be doing a deep dive into some lore, and we're going to keep it extremely vague right now, but what we're doing is really playing to her strong suit and kind of some of the ideas that I've had as we've been moving along. So that's going to be really big for us, and I'm excited to tap into everything that she can do, all of her capabilities in that realm. So, my name's Ren. I do the art for Overexposed, mainly in 3D. I am self-taught, mainly from YouTube. I really enjoy it. This whole thing started with being more or less Scalp's amazing collector and visionary named Jeff. He's here with us. Shout out to Jeff. And here we are. We're cruising along. we're expanding the things that we're doing in a really exciting way, which is kind of part of it is starting with right now this Twitter space and talking to the Heartist. So hey, yeah, would you want to come on board and introduce yourself?
Hi, Ren. Nice to meet you. Happy to be here and happy to be the first one that you guys interviewed. It's an honor. Really, I love your work. So my name is Zachary. I go by the Heartist Artist on Twitter and Instagram, as well as my website. I do a lot of mental health work. I dabble in traditional, digital. I'm really all over the place. But the main point is I just love to create art.
Tell us how the name The Heartist came about, and just what your art in general is about before we get into some deeper questions.
Absolutely. So the Heartist Artist, I had started drawing the anatomical heart since high school, really, in my teen years, but I didn't really understand why. I just loved the anatomy of it, the beauty of it. Um, as life went on, I would sift in and out of art as I grew older and tried to find a career path. Eventually, I landed in nursing, and that's when I really dived into the anatomy of what the heart is and what the heart does for us. And it had blew my mind. It was a life-altering experience, to say the least, to know more about how we work and how important that organ is. Um, moving forward, uh, afterwards, graduating nursing and working in the psychiatric ward for a number of years, my father passed away from a heart attack. And that's when things kind of really exploded because I had thought to myself, how am I going to cope with this grief? What am I going to do? Because grief is this energy, it's a force, and it's definitely an energy. And we decide, how we're going to propel that and what we're going to, how to cope with that really. And what I decided to do was use it as a catalyst for my artwork. And I dived heavy into the heart as we know it, and it became much larger than myself in time.
Recently somebody was talking about grief and like how it's just sort of like you have to rip open this wound that becomes a home for that part of you. Like it's just like a rough process, but it does build a home eventually. It's a really awesome story with the heart that you've had. I think we're going to need to throw up a lot of heart emojis in this Twitter space. Just throwing that out there. It only seems right.
Yeah, man. I mean, thanks for sharing that. That's obviously I'm terribly sorry for your loss. I'm very close with my dad, and I can't even begin. When I even start to try to begin to think about that, I start getting emotional. So I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sure that what that puts you through has made you much stronger. I think that that has pain inside of him, or had pain, or is dealing with it, or moving from it, uh, uh, makes some amazing art. I think that it only adds to it. And I think those backstories are really important. And I'm curious, I know you said you've been working, with the heart for a long time, and when on the timeline with your father passing, did the art that I'm looking at on your website now, was this happening afterwards? Was this happening before, after? Was there a timeline that you could share with that?
So before this all happened after he had passed away, and it happened because I wanted to make him proud in a way. I really believe that once somebody's gone, it doesn't mean that you can't make them proud. So I had thought about what I had in my quiver. I had a number of years of psychiatric nursing experience. And I actually had started drawing scribbles one night while in the psychiatric ward. I was working overnights, and one of my favorite things to do was draw with my patients. And a lot of them were highly schizophrenic, but when you get them in that zone, and they change a bit, and you get to see who they were before the disease, and spending some time with them, it struck the inspiration for me to start a mental health series with those scribble works.
I think that is something that really resonates with me, and I think would also resonate with Ren. We really are interested in mental health issues and getting getting awareness out there. And I mean, art is one of the most amazing ways to do that, and one of the ways that makes people feel less alone and validated, and it just reminds you that you can turn it into something else, that it can be transmuted. It's just like proof that it can be transmuted in some way.
Yeah, darkness is beauty. Some
No, absolutely. And I just want to say, you know, guys, if you haven't hit up his website, absolutely hit up his website, theheartistartist.com, and check out the piece Socially Anxious. I mean, this
Dude,
is
that's my favorite. Yeah.
it is. I mean, it's just absolutely the stringiness that you got between the character in real life and the character that feel, the person that the inside that wants to pull away. I mean, it's just so realistic and unique and gross, and gives me all the emotions that I want to feel when thinking about being in those, small talk conversations at the parties I went to in LA, just wanting to leave. And the way that you have the character on the ground grabbing the frame of the art, it's just so cool, man. This one's not for sale, is it? I haven't seen it anywhere.
No, so I decided to keep those in my quiver until, because I feel like with mental health, not one person socially anxious. There's thousands and millions of people out there that feel the same exact way. So I'm really just waiting for a time in the Cardano timeline that I'm able to be able to fractionalize that art to thousands of pieces and offer it at a considerably low cost. That way, the people that need to have it can get it, and that yeah. So
It's so like fourth wall breaking, and also reminds me of it pulls from so many things that I really like. That one for sure.
Yeah, I just want to just piggyback off of that real quick. I love that idea, man. I love that idea of being able to split it up and to have more people own it, to have it in their wallet, and to feel proud and not as alone in their social anxiety. Every time they'll see this piece that you made that's in their wallet, they'll remember he has it too, or other people have it as well. And that's a wonderful feeling. Before I need to ask this now, because this has been a big question mark in my head. In the bottom right corner of almost all the pieces you have on your website, there's this label Photoshop Express. So initially my head goes to a watermark for not, paying for the software or using the free Photoshop Express that's out there. But then I look at the quality of everything and I'm like, would you do that? And then I look and I see you're using, I believe you're using Amasiograph. Correct me if I'm wrong for some of these pieces. And I'm like, that's not even Photoshop Express. So why would it be there? Can you give me a little intel? I'm dying to know.
yeah, so so actually, a lot of these artworks were actually, so they were drawn, or at least the scribble artworks on my main page. Those were all drawn using Autodesk Sketchbook. It's a free software that anybody can get, iPad or Android, and it was my digital kickoff. I wanted to try traditional so bad, and I just ended up using the pen in digital. But apart from that, I would export that artwork, and I guess came from an insecurity. I have an Instagram actually dedicated to those artworks called Zachary.scribbles, and it's a niche genre page, and it covers all of the mental health pieces that I've ever done, and it's very clean, and it's for those who want to go there and just browse. And but I had received a lot of emails from people asking me about the copyright and them using it for T-shirts and stuff. And this was before I even knew about NFTs, right? I didn't know Cardano existed. I didn't know OpenSea existed. So I guess I got kind of scared of that, and I found the Photoshop app on my phone, found a watermark, and just slapped that bad boy on there. Not really giving more thought to it.
Yeah, damn, I just followed you. This is really clean, and
Yeah,
you got
same.
a lot of followers.
Yeah, this is incredible. Some of these pieces are one. I mean, the first one, I just have to ask. This one here, hijacking, guys that are listening. It's symmetrical. It's mechanic. It's bio. Is this? Oh, it's emotional hijacking. I mean, are you aware of or into H.R. Giger, the artist?
Oh man, you know it. I mean, you could know. I mean, if anybody to know, you would know. And just looking at my work, I'm sure that's one of the first things that pop off in your head. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
H.R.
yeah.
Geiger, yeah, Geiger, he's a huge inspiration of mine.
Dude, I can tell, and so I'm just big old grin ear to ear. But and then further down on this Instagram page, you have a lot more wiry work. And I'll tell you what, the first thing that I was seeing when I was seeing your what is it called, scribble? I think there's a term for it. Was I really really like wire sculptures. There was an exhibit in the museum that in the city I grew up in Baltimore, and it was nothing but wire sculptures. And there's a handful of the pieces that you have that very much feel like wire sculptures. And I'm curious, have you ever pulled inspiration from them? And also, have you ever considered trying to move over to that, even just for fun?
Absolutely. I mean, the realms of possibilities are something that I'm always thinking about. My mind's never almost, it's almost never standing still. So I've thought about 3D scribbles. I've thought about doing some wire work, for sure. Have I derived any inspiration for them? I would say I derived a lot of inspiration from an artist. I can't remember his last name. His name's Adam, and I'm gonna have to find him for you because you need to see his work, and you'll see a lot of similarities. But I saw that he was doing these scribble artworks, and I had tried it one day, and it felt absolutely amazing. For some reason, there's such catharsis in expressionism and drawing with complete freedom with the paper, and that's where I got the inspiration for the scribbles. But yeah, I definitely want to hit up some metal sculptures at some point. I have visions in my head, and they need to come out eventually, and I'm sure they will.
That's amazing, man. And I guess another question of mine would be, have you ever considered? I mean, I know it takes so much time to just make one, but ever considered animating with onion skinning and doing, multiple versions and getting a little motion going in the 2D realm?
Yeah, so I actually did my first animation this year. I believe it was last month. Another grief story. I'm sorry to say, but it was after my uncle had passed away, and I had made a animated artwork of a casket and two people on either side reaching down and holding the casket, and a little soul shoots up from the middle to the sky, creates a face, and a tear comes down. I tweeted it out. It's very amateur, but I had a lot of fun with it. It really made me feel good. I didn't know that starting with I guess, smaller canvas side was gonna. I started with the large canvas size, and I was very limited on the amount of slides I could do. So this next time, I think I have a better idea on how I'm going to do it. But yeah, to answer your question, man, yeah, animation is definitely over the horizon for me, and I feel like it would be the next step to take.
I cannot wait to see that come to life. Something that I've been thinking about is what your experience has been like as an artist, with other artists prior to being in CNFTs versus being here with Artano and everything now. I know that you are really connected with a lot of artists on Artano, and I just want to hear more about that experience.
Yeah, so the first time I ever really, for the longest time in my life, I just drew and uploaded. I've never really thought about sales. It was never it never popped in my head like, you can make money from this. It was something like I just did, and I had this innate feeling to share the work that I produced. Um, but when I very first started getting into it, I did a couple of pop-up stands with some local artists. Met them. I did that about 2 times, I think. Made a couple of sales, and that was exhilarating for me. By the way, I mean, the first time that somebody buys your artwork, it's truly a special feeling. You're like, wow, you chose me. And you chose this artwork, and for why, I wonder, and all those things go through your head, and very exciting. I don't want to get too off track. After hold on one second, my doggy.
We give him pets.
Oh, I wish I had a dog. My house, I'm renting this house, and I'm not allowed to have dogs. But also, I feel like I wouldn't have time to walk it, so maybe it's a good thing. It's a blessing in disguise.
Oh yeah, you got to get a dog, man. They are mental health companions, and they're just so loving. It's incredible.
What kind of dog is it?
It's a Pitador. She's a Pitador mix. She's really sweet. She's not aggressive by any means. She's a silly, silly dog. I gotta tell you, she's always in a silly, goofy mood, and always down for anything too. We went skating the other day. But so going back to the collaborations, I have recently done a couple of collaborations with a couple of artists here on Artano, and it's been an incredible experience to say the least. Getting to work with some of these artists, collaborating especially is a was a special experience for me. Getting to know the other artists and learning how to work around each other's capabilities, what they can do, what they can't do, is
Didn't you do something with Poetonic?
Yeah, so I just did something with Poetonic. We created Heart of the City, and I also have worked with another artist, Data Krez, and now I'm currently working with Victor, all in which have different styles. With Krez, his style was more illustrative and Photoshop, surrealist, collager. Um, and then with Poetonic, he does photography and animation. And now with Victor, working with Victor, he does insane illustrations. I mean, highly detailed illustrations that are been pretty hard to keep up with. He's an incredible artist, but finding a way to connect has been such an experience, because at first I went with Krez when he offered to do a collaboration with me. I didn't know how it was going to happen. How am I going to be able to mesh with this artist when he does these hyper realistic or realistic artworks? And yeah, I mean, this community has changed how I feel about and how I connect with other artists in total. It's like my home. I've never experienced anything like it, and they're my peers, and I just want to see everybody succeed.
Yeah, man, that's the way that I'm feeling about being here as well. Is this feeling of camaraderie and support. I haven't had the joy of doing an official collab yet, and it's on the horizon, as you say, and I'm extremely excited to cross that bridge and to do something like that in this space. It'll be new territory for me to do that in a 3D capacity, and I've done it in a lot of other capacities like music and photography and other mediums, but never in 3D. So I'm envious. I'm excited for that aspect of this space. It is super cool. And I want to ask you, man. I know we talked about family a little bit, but as for one of the more interesting. I mean, there's a million questions to ask an artist, and some of them are some of the answers I'm interested in, some I'm not so much. One of the things that I think means a lot in a journey is globally in terms of just broader family. I don't know if you have siblings, uncles, aunts. What was the commitment? What was your battle in terms of I want to be an artist? Did you have a lot of support? Was it an uphill battle of them, family saying art will never make money, this is a waste of time? Like what was that climate for you as an upbringing? I mean, I'm talking like anywhere between 8 and 18.
No, absolutely. So I think that's an interesting question to ask, and it gives a good idea of where the artist came from. So I come from a family of mom and dad and three sisters. I was the only boy. I had two twin sisters, younger, and one older sister. My dad worked a lot. He was also a nurse, and he spent most of his time, making money to provide for the family. So I spent a lot of time with my mom and the girls, going here and there, and that's kind of what started my artist journey, I guess you could say, because my mom, I guess, acknowledged that I had a crazy imagination. I started off drawing like creepies and stuff, really, and monster trucks. But she'd always just hand me a pencil and a spiral notebook, and I went to town. That was my thing. It was like, did you bring my pencil and my sketchbook? Yes. Okay. Let's freaking go. We're ready then. And so she would always give me praise on these drawings, and I think that's something that was so vital to me being where I am today, is that the praisal. I mean, even though my art, you're a kid, your stuff's not what you see in the comic books, but your mom loves it anyways, and your dad loves it anyways, and that praise. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it helps out tremendously. And it always makes me a little melancholic to think about all the people that didn't get that, because how many artists would we have with us here today if that was the case? And I had a lot of support. Going into college, though, I didn't really think about art so much. I had went in initially for graphic design, not knowing what graphic design really was. I just knew it had to deal with art, and I had a couple suggestions to take that avenue, and I did not like it one bit. I made it one semester and changed career paths completely. So it took me a while to find my way back to art, but when I did, I mean, I got to say, my mom was a little concerned um, with me not nursing, so it was a big leap. But she supported me, and she gave me the support I needed, and continues to do so. And can't thank her enough for that, really.
I mean, sorry. Oh, sorry, Liz. I just need to follow up on that. Dude, the fact that you said how weight a parent's approval and praise can do is really strikes, a chord with me. I think that there is so much to say in that realm. I think that the main reason I am where I am is exactly the same reason. My parents were so supportive, and I, I've said this in the past, and I really do believe it. I didn't start in visual arts at all. I started in music, and I started as a drummer, and I. I had a drum set and I played terribly for 5 years straight, and it was, ear splittingly loud throughout the entire house. And yet they tolerated it, and yet they supported it and said, keep going, keep practicing. And I think that that is such a testament to their ability to parent. And I think that it was one of the biggest contributing factors for me to keep going. And I think that it's wonderful to hear that you had that support. And something that has saddened me and makes me melancholy to think about is my dad is an enormous music appreciator. He knows all the classical composers. He knows all the jam bands from the 70s. Like, he has one of those audiophile setups with the massive speakers in the living room, and the crazy turntable. And he works at a gas station as a clerk. So it's like he spends all the money that he owns on his sound equipment. And I really genuinely believe that if his parents had put an instrument in his hand when he was 3 years old, or whatever, 5 years old, and they supported him, he would have been a incredible musician. And his parents were the opposite. They were traditional. They were not into that. He grew up in the early '60s, late '50s, and I can sense, because I can sense when someone has an ear for music in terms of being able to make it. And he can't hold a pitch with his voice for shit. Can't, keep rhythm. He can't do any of that. And I think that that's simply because he didn't start since he was a kid, and he didn't have parents that. So anyway, I've always felt like he was a musician in a non-musician's body, and that's a really sad thought for me. And so anyway, man, that just really struck a chord. And in graphic design, I used to think it was really, really hip, crazy, cool stuff. And then my friend is a professional graphic designer, and he designs pamphlets for some boring companies. So any graphic designers out there, I feel for you. If you have a better job than doing pamphlets for companies, good on you. I know there is some really cool stuff in graphic design. But anyway, when you said that it wasn't what you thought it was, I had that exact same experience at some point.
Yeah, listening to y'all talk about this, it makes me think of something I heard not that long ago, which is like every child is an artist. And I think that that's true. My family was like your dad's family. Like, it might have well have been the 60s in my house. And I did not get that supported at all. And I think that it just made me take a more indirect journey to it. It made the path to get there more complicated rather than sort of more direct growing up. And I think it's really funny that you started with creepy clowns and monster trucks. I just feel like that just it all comes together to hear that for sure. And also the fact that you were a nurse, that you decided to do nursing. I think that it helped, it can help you to be more balanced, and you can see how that helped your journey. Like, you needed to keep what you were doing have, I don't know, just balance, I think, is the point I'm trying to make. It's very important.
I agree 100%. Balance is very underrated and often overlooked. But having any sort of balance in life is it's just key. You know. Uh, but Ren, going back, I just wanted to make this quick this little note on things. And I was a drummer too for some time, and I think that's crazy. Uh, you know, from given our subject matter and what we're into, I was also a drummer. I think that's cool. And I'm very sorry to hear that your father never made it to musicianship. I think that's part of the reason why I'm here as well. Is I acknowledge this matter of fact, and I want to help people become artists that never thought that they could. And I have some people in here that have started creating, and they've just come so long. I mean, they've come so far in such a short amount of time. And it's like, man, all you needed, you just needed some support, and now you're doing it. And I think it's not too late for some people, and that we shouldn't give up on them.
I
Not,
agree, man.
yeah, not that you've given up on anybody. I'm just saying, in here in this community, they're around us.
They absolutely are. And I think that something that NFTs have done a lot something that I think is really beautiful and magical that is separate and apart from all the craziness of the numbers is that a single sale of an artist that didn't think that they were an artist can rejuvenate them, can start a snowballing effect that is so you can't buy that, priceless, like the Visa commercials. It's priceless. And that, because I mean, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Is just that NFTs have given, like me, dude. I remember you were saying earlier, like your first sale, the first sale I had on Ethereum, like it blew me away. And I mean, I have been, I've made a living doing photography and videography, and but for the most part, that's service built, and it's not art. And I think that this was the first time I made abstract art, and he wanted it, and that, I mean, that really kicked it all off. And I think wherever somebody is in their artistic career, whether or not they just downloaded Procreate or they've been doing it for years, that sale lights the fire. And so I'm glad you say that. I think that's a great element of this.
So I have a kind of a burning question that I've always wanted to ask someone in an interview, but it's also kind of a cheesy question. But I feel like, I know you, so it's this is the perfect opportunity for it, and it is the inside the actor studio question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Your art desk is over there.
Yes,
You're gonna be God's art slave. Amazing.
I love that. That's great. That's great. Well, dude, that is so cool. I also wanted to ask. I can see that you definitely have gone around the Giger path and checked him out. What's some of your other influences? And I know that's super vague. So I'm not asking for your absolute favorite movie or favorite artist. I think that that's really hard, at least for me to answer. Just in general, just nonchalant, who are some of the people that you do like? What are movies that you just have always loved? Not your favorites. Don't speak volumes about your character, but just something you've loved.
Yeah, I like the way you worded that. Good job.
So Beck, and I'm terrible at grammar sometimes, so I apologize. You might be able to correct me on this. Bekskinski, he's an artist I highly admire. His art is very dark, and I've always loved that about him. As some guy lied, I probably pronounced it wrong. Movie wise, I really like the Alien series because, of course, I like Geiger. The Iron Giant. The Iron Giant is probably my fave. And anything mechanical, really. Anything that's going to spark that inspiration in my head is what I try to gravitate to. But and then in terms of like older artists, grandmaster artists, Caravaggio was a heavy inspiration for me, and the way that he contrasted that dark and light is always so captivating to me. It's so blacked out in that focal point, and the way that he shaded it in there. I mean, I don't know. It always blew my mind.
Thank you for that. I love it. First off, I think you're pronouncing Beksinski good enough for me to understand who you were talking about. So that's all that matters. I have no idea either. Dude, this artist I love, man. I mean, we have such a similar taste. Like that. I think, wasn't he the one? I mean, that one piece where he has a million knuckles, a million fingers on the trumpet, I believe it is. That feels like the prop from that one movie. I mean, he's just such a creepy, incredible talent. I love that he inspires you. It is pronounced Giger, by the way, not Geiger. I found that out the hard way about a year ago.
Yeah, he just
And
taught
then,
me too.
yeah, I know. I spread the love on that just because I love him so much. But dude,
The
Caravaggio,
geeks.
the geeks, exactly. I love how you love the negative space in Caravaggio. It's so dark, like you said, which brings in the focal point, and he's capturing a scene. He's capturing a real life scene, but he's doing his absolute best, or did do the best, to only make you look at what is important. And I tried to do that with this last collection. I tried to use light. I tried to use shadowing to drive eyeballs to the things that I wanted. And I think I did better than I have in the past, but I'm definitely not where I wanted to be. So I'm really excited for the future art that I'm making, current art that I'm making for Overexposed, to further that very tricky, very it doesn't seem hard to do, but it is. It takes, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of practice to do it in a way where it's not obvious. And Caravaggio, I think, does that really well. Is he makes it not too obvious. And also, to be honest with you, looking at your pieces, you do something that Giger did in his very early stages in like the 70s, which was start with a black canvas and then carve out the white using black lavishly, I guess I should say. So I can almost see that inspiration pulling through. So this is great. I love hearing these two artists. I love also tying into what I believe how they inspired your work. That's wonderful.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure. I saw the little mic is on and off thing. Um, but I was curious. I was looking at your artwork, and I think you captured it extremely well. I know, as from an artist's perspective, you see what we don't see, but from my eyes, it's absolutely incredible what you did there. I mean, I hadn't even registered and made those two connections initially until you had asked me who inspired me. But after I like almost like a synapse after I said Caravaggio, your work popped into my head, and I was like, "Wow, I mean, he did that pretty well." I mean, I didn't even recognize that you did that, and yeah, I mean, the contrast between your mech is it's pretty incredible, man. It's pretty incredible. Um, what drove you to get into biomech? I've been wanting to ask you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like we're like hawks circling around one of the best. I saw Alien when I was like 13. I cried. I think I was a little too young. My dad showed it to me, but I fell in love with the textures. I fell in love with the ambiance, and I just wanted more. And honestly, it kind of faded away for most of my life. I got into biomech about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know what made me rediscover it, but it was probably in one of the low points of my just my mental health. And I fell in love. If you learn it, like dance. I had a girlfriend a long time ago that was really into dance, and I didn't get dance. I didn't understand it. I thought it was stupid. But then the second that you start to learn what what is hard to do, what's easy to do, what to look for when you look for the pointed toe, in ballet, and how stationary is your head. Once you start to learn the art of this medium, you start to really appreciate it and can get into it. For instance, also, my girlfriend right now, she doesn't know anything about Formula One racing, and now I'm showing her and explaining to her the all the nuance and the drama and what to look for, and then you start to appreciate an art form. And so that's two different directions: me understanding something and me showing something. But with biomech, there's a learning curve. There's a learning curve to what to look at, what is revolutionary in a piece. Things that you've seen before, and things that are wow, he has never done that before. That is cool. And the more you look at it, the more you learn. Just like with anything. So if you take the time to not just look at a few pieces from any of the artists we've mentioned today and start to learn where their progress has been, and I mean, just the door opens up and then it's game over. I have multiple books on Giger. It's very hard to find books that are affordable. I found one recently in a thrift shop. It was a very expensive book, sold for about the tenth of the price because the seller had no idea what he's selling. Anyway, little finds like that are amazing. But just looking at a lot of an artist's art, I think that it becomes more fun. So yeah, that's how I got into biomech, dude. It was Alien, and then the whole series and whatnot.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like with sci-fi writing, for example, so many books that came out in the last 100 years have ended up kind of becoming reality because people were fans of these books, and then they created the technology, and it just sort of does an interesting loop. And I feel like I don't know, with the art that you guys create, it sort of has a similar vibe. Like, you got to try to find a way that it has been done already and that is kind of pushing it forward, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from just being true to yourself and finding that originality is something that I practice, and I think this is something that I'm kind of insecure about. But I am a concept. I love concepts. I like going at it. I have an idea, and even if I don't know how to do it 100% yet, I'm gonna go for it because I feel it, and I feel it in my mind, my body, and my soul. I want to draw this, and I want to draw it now, and it has to come out now. And so I'm kind of been learning as I go, how to properly do things, or I'll have an epiphany and notice something, and go back to it. But going back to the conclusion here, the main point. When I draw, I'll look at something sometimes, or I'll have this image in my head, and I'm so stubborn to look at a reference sometimes, and then that's something that's debatable. I think that using a reference is king, and most professional artists like to use a reference. But something that could help you is to look away every now and then and just go for it and not know it, and you're not going to get it, and you're gonna keep it's it's like what Brent said, you're going to keep carving this out, and every artwork you do, you're getting closer to your true self and putting your soul into your work, and that's what's going to separate you, really, in my humble opinion.
No, I agree, man. Absolutely. I think I mean I think every artist is you know is self conscious about that, including me. I mean, their references. There's probably 30% maybe of everything that I've done where I haven't looked at something, whether it's on the street or on my desk or whatever, or online, and said, dang, I think that that's a kind of a cool concept. I want to use that texture somehow. You know what I mean? I think that that is something. There's a lot to say for that, and I really have done a lot of research on art appropriation. I think that there's a whole world of art where it's an artist selecting other things. There's the things that are famous. Like, I don't remember the name of the artist, but he just selected a certain chair, and put it on a podium in a museum. And there was all of this. There's uproar. That's not his chair. He didn't make that chair. And this whole concept in art appropriation that I find really interesting is it's art because the artist simply chose that chair. You know what I mean? And there's other artists that take 10 items, like let's see, like mechanical items like gearboxes and spark plugs and all these items from a car, and puts it together. Did he make those items? Absolutely not. He took them. But it's art because it's just simple and plain process of he picked those and he put those in that order, and that's what's really magical about it. So that's a little bit of a divergence from what you were talking about, but in the same vein, it's just references, inspiration, art appropriation. I think that all of it can be a sore spot for artists, especially at least for me. And I think that part of your artistic career is grappling with it. And I think that as long as what comes out doesn't look like anything else that's been done, that's all that matters to me. So however it has to happen, whatever the sausage being made is never a pretty sight. But if the sausage tastes good, in the end of the day, I think that that's
Right on, man. Yeah, I can get behind that.
Big questions that we're all grappling with right now. What is art? Where is the intention? Where to me, the purpose and what's behind it. And I like for people, to me, it's important that someone can articulate what's behind it. Like, that's kind of where it comes for me. But I want to move into the Twitter space action of this in a minute. If we don't have any more questions that we want to ask Zach specifically, so that we can open it up to everyone else to ask questions and possibly to chat about some of the stuff that we've been talking about.
love it. Let's rock it.
Initializing open discussion. Live forms will raise hands to speak on topics or ask questions to the Heartist artist.
All right, you heard it from the Overlord. If you have a question, throw your hands in the air, or if you want to talk about where you think the line, the scribble gets drawn when it comes to what art is. I also want to hear from people about what people see as the pros and cons of people making money from art more. Like having more people have a side hustle that is their art. Yeah.
Well, if nobody raises their hand, I could answer that question. I guess Yeah. Well, Alyssa, just cut me off if someone raises their hand. How about that?
You got it.
Okay, sweet. I guess just in terms of artists making money off of art, obviously this is coming from an artist, so grain of salt and all that. But I think there's some stigma, there's some kind of underlying, I don't want to say tension, but underlying dialogue that happens with people selling art. And I think that, in my opinion, what it kind of comes down to is humans need to get paid for whatever they do, whether it's plumbing or nursing or graphic design or making art. I think that, it shouldn't be surprising in the least that artists are making a living and paying their rent and eating for something that they are doing professionally. You know what I mean? I think that the different amounts, things can get kind of interesting and worth talking about. But at least for me, I've always felt like that stigma of photographers getting paid, videographers getting paid, artists, drawers, people that are making art has been kind of a simple answer. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I totally agree. I think that the pros outweigh the cons by an insane amount. I mean, honestly, one of the big things I think is really good about it is just like, since we are living in such a consumerism culture, like it almost makes people take it more seriously and pay more attention to it if people are getting paid for it, just because of the way things are right now. And but I have heard people sort of voicing, the reason I wanted to bring it up is because the other day I was talking to someone and they were bringing up how they didn't like how nothing was sacred anymore. Like if you had a hobby, you were going to try to make money off of it. But I don't know. I just think that's more a result of our current situation than it is like a bad thing. Yeah.
I don't think it loses its sacredness. I mean, there's still art that I create that nobody's ever seen, Um, but to say that it's not sacred anymore is, I don't know, it's a bit outlandish to me. And one of the reasons I never really thought about it, whether it was right or wrong for me to make money off of my art, that was never the issue for me. The issue for me was I didn't want to let go of my artwork. I didn't want to give that up. It was mine. I made it. I felt it, and it was a part of me. And that was my biggest struggle up into my mid 20s. Was I'm not letting this go. I will hoard my own art. It's mine. But coming into the NFT scene, it changes. And I've learned how to let go much more since then. Creating, sometimes I'll just throw a whole drawing away. It's just I'll recycle it. I've been trying to recycle it. This idea of NFTs making physical artwork somewhat recyclable has been something that's been appealing to me in recent days. The fact that I can recycle all my paper and I still get to sell the artwork as an NFT has been exciting. And I don't know, but for it to not be sacred, I mean, we love what we do. We love it. I don't get that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a very black and white way to look at it, and it doesn't. Yeah, you don't have to group it that way, but I do see that people have that temptation out there.
Yeah, for sure. In the spirit of that, I think the art of plumbing is really sacred as well, and I think plumbers should stay at home and keep that to themselves. I think.
You heard it here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Ren. And if you should get paid for what you love to do. There is, and once I think there's this level of spirituality. Like there's different types of art mindsets out there, right? There's the technicalities of is this shading right, and then there's the spirituality, and should this be sold or is it the craft of it? I guess is what's so spiritual about it, and so admirable in the art form. And we're artists through and through. We make buildings, skyscrapers, hell, we make babies. you know we all we do is create. All we do is create.
That's true. Yeah, there was a phase when I was at music school where I was making baby making music. So there was I've definitely inadvertently made some babies, no doubt. But yeah, no, I mean I think Alyssa, I'm curious. Obviously, I've been nose deep in the 3D doing some of the stuff that always focused on right now. But I'd be curious to ask those same people: should an author get money or sell their book, or keep the book to themselves and have that book be quote unquote sacred. So I'm curious where that line is drawn, where someone says, "Oh no, of course they sell their book. There's value there. That's a book." Like, where's that line? You know what I mean? Because obviously, as artists, we feel that even though it's not 200 pages, our work, we still pour just as much heart and soul and tears into it than an author might. You know what I mean? Who's to say?
Now that I think about it, with you saying that about books, it sort of makes me feel like it's one of those things that's just gotten passed along from years and years ago, because it used to be more expensive to be an artist, less people could be artists, and therefore it just wasn't it was easier to pick up a pen and paper and write, maybe, and so that just became a thing, and then people become comfortable with the thing, and they accept it, even if there's cognitive dissonance, even if it doesn't make sense because it's the same thing as this other thing, really. People just become comfortable with certain things and accept certain things, and yeah.
I agree. And I think that also, on top of getting comfortable with the medium, it's people get comfortable and used to paying for a specific medium. And I mean, that being said, I mean, there were, portrait artists that were around thousands of years ago. Like, art has been around and been paid for a very long time, but I think that the traditional artist and the traditional, when someone says, "Oh, that's okay for that artist to charge money," not in the world of NFTs and whatnot. So maybe that's where that disconnect is happening. That same person that said selling their art is sacred. I'm also curious, to pull it one step closer. Would you say the same exact thing about a portrait artist? A 50-year-old portrait artist. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to spin it and a lot of ways to get curious about it.
Definitely. What's up, Gourmeta?
So, one of you all was just saying about how the first point you made was that what is the line you draw between am I going to sell my art or am I going to keep my art? So, one of the things, what like I'm a write for a living and as well as I write for fun. But there are certain things that I've written that I would never share with the outside world. Like, for example, my diaries and so on from my teenage years. Those are, I mean, I can't conceive of at this point of time publishing them, because apart from it's not because of the personal aspect. I mean, I could share the personal aspect, but would somebody really want to read my day in and day out of what I did and how I felt and how I had a crush on this girl and how I pined for her and blah blah blah? I mean, that in a diary form and the teenage angst that gets poured out, I don't know whether somebody would want to read that. And for many people, even though I don't have an issue about putting that out there, for many people it will be too personal to write and to put it out there. Especially if it's going to be critiqued by people, and people will say all sorts of things about your publication. So that is the one side. But on the other hand, if I'm writing a book or if I'm writing a non-fiction publication or something, I would definitely have no issues about publishing it. And of course, there'll be people who love it and people who hate it. But this is the territory of any creative work. So that would be the line that I would draw on that point. And you mentioned something else, but it slipped my mind. I'll come back to that. I mean, it was more to do with the name. Oh yeah, yeah. You mentioned that now it's easier for at least you said. I mean, I disagree to the point where I think now easier for an artist to pick up his to get a canvas, to buy canvas, and even to buy in like paints or something, than it is for a writer to publish his work, because an artist can always, okay, canvas is expensive, but you can buy some canvas and you can do your art, or if not on canvas, you can find some other medium to do your art, or now on NFTs it's all digital, so you can easily do your art. But with an author still has to not only write his work, but he has to then go to an intermediate agency like a publisher to get his put into the eyeballs of people who will pay for it, right? So it's not so easy as like putting your work on an NFT marketplace or something like that. So I think artists now have a far better deal than authors, and authors still have to go the traditional route, whereas artists can just get onto an NFT marketplace. I haven't figured out how authors are going to do that same thing and mint a PFP where every different version of his publication is different in some way, and rarities come up because I can't. I need to conceptualize that, but with art, it's become pretty common to see 100 different PFP projects in the Cardano space itself. So that's my take.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready for some more for some NFT books. I'm sure that will be coming before we know it.
Yeah, and I just want to talk on that for a second. I mean, thanks for saying that stuff. I mean, that's a great perspective, a perspective I did not think I'd hear today. So that's cool. First off, I mean, you're right. You're right. Authors are going uphill against NFT makers, PFP makers, but also marble chiselers, sculptor makers are going uphill far more than authors are. You know, I mean, the art medium is all art mediums have a different, I want to say, difficulty in terms of just physical road barriers, not in terms of the art and where it comes from, but I'm sure you know what I mean by difficulty. Um, I think that you know what your medium does. My friend, I have to say this, my friend published a children's book, and I watched him go through the whole process, and it was hell. I want to say that I can almost feel for you in a third party way. But you know how I view that, man? I really view it as weeding out the weak. Sure, it's harder for you